What happens when the brightest lights in Hollywood meet the heaviest smoke? Behind the charm, the voices, and the unforgettable performances, some stars were never without a cigarette. Not one, not two, but constantly. Packs vanished between takes, ashtrays overflowed, and no one told them to stop. Halfway through this list, the stories turn from stylish to unsettling. And by the end, you'll realize Hollywood didn't just sell glamour, it quietly sold habits too. Number 20, John Candy. John Candy looked like comfort. He lived like exhaustion. Audiences saw warmth, laughter, and that gentle everyman energy. Behind the scenes, Candy moved fast, worked non-stop, and smoked constantly. Cigarettes were part of his rhythm. Between scenes, after meals, late at night when scripts blurred together, it wasn't casual, it was constant. Candy started smoking young, long before Hollywood noticed him. By the time success arrived, the habit was locked in. Long shoots meant long breaks filled with smoke. Comedy sets ran late and cigarettes became fuel. Crew members remembered the smell lingering even after he left the room. Unlike stars who hid their habits, Candy never pretended. He joked about stress. He joked about food. He joked about time running out. But the pace never slowed. Film after film, location after location, the routine stayed the same. The weight, the fatigue, the cigarettes all piled up quietly. No public collapse, no warning scene, just years of strain adding up. John Candy didn't fade out. He burned bright and fast. His performances still feel alive because they were powered by urgency. But the smoke that followed him everywhere, that part never made it into the movies. Number 19, Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash smoked like silence made him uneasy. The deep voice, the slow walk, the calm stare. Off stage, cigarettes were always there, filling the gaps between songs and thoughts. Cash started young and never really stopped. Touring meant long nights. Recording meant waiting. Waiting meant lighting up again. Smoking wasn't rebellion for Cash. It was routine. A steady companion through decades of shows, interviews, and quiet hotel rooms. He didn't glamorize it. He relied on it. You could see it in old footage. The cigarette wasn't posed. It was necessary. As the years stacked up, the toll became harder to ignore. Breathing grew heavier. Energy dipped. Performances demanded more effort. Doctors warned him. Fans noticed. Still, the habit lingered long after it stopped offering comfort. Cash eventually stepped back, focusing on legacy rather than pace. But the damage had already shaped him. That gravel in his voice, that wear behind the eyes. It came from somewhere. Johnny Cash sounded like a man who had lived every word he sang. Cigarettes didn't create that depth, but they followed him through every verse until the very end. Number 18, Suzanne Pleshette. Suzanne Plechette's voice told the story before she ever did. Smooth early on, then deeper, rougher, heavier with time. That change didn't come from age alone. Smoking was constant. 2 packs a day became normal. On set, at home, between rehearsals. Pleshette worked steadily for decades, and cigarettes became part of the job. Television schedules were tight. Pressure was constant. Lighting up felt automatic. Her voice gained character, but it also carried damage. Fans noticed the shift before anyone talked about it. When health problems finally surfaced, the habit was impossible to ignore. Years of smoke had done their work quietly. Treatment forced a pause in her career, something she rarely allowed herself before. The pace that once defined her suddenly slowed. What makes her story striking isn't denial, it's dedication. Even as her body pushed back, her instinct was still to work, still to perform, still to show up. Suzanne Pleshette didn't lose her presence. She paid for it. And every time you hear that unmistakable voice, you're hearing a career shaped by talent, endurance, and far too much smoke. Number 17, Kathleen Turner. Kathleen Turner's voice became iconic and dangerous. Early roles revealed confidence and sharp energy. Off camera, cigarettes were everywhere. Smoking wasn't hidden. It was social. It was constant. It was part of Hollywood's unspoken routine. As her career soared, so did the strain. Long days, intense roles, and non-stop attention fed the habit. Her voice deepened, turning into a signature that casting directors loved. but the cost followed closely behind. Physical discomfort crept in slowly. Fatigue, pain, reduced stamina. Acting demanded more than it once did. The industry noticed before the audience did. Roles changed, appearances shifted. Turner never disappeared. She adapted. Teaching, voice work, select performances. But the transformation was real. The same habit that helped define her screen presence also narrowed her path. Kathleen Turner didn't burn out. She recalibrated. Her career stands as proof that Hollywood often rewards the result and ignores the price until the bill arrives. Number 16. Charles Lane. Charles Lane smoked longer than most people live. Decades of films, decades of television, and decades of cigarettes. Lane played authority figures, clerks, judges, and managers. Behind every stern expression was a steady habit that rarely paused. One pack a day, every day, for nearly 70 years. That wasn't exaggeration, that was routine. He joked about it openly, brushing off warnings with humor. He lived past 100, which only made the habit seem invincible. But even Lane couldn't outrun it forever. Breathing issues arrived late, but decisively. The same lungs that carried him through countless performances finally pushed back. His story is unsettling because it feels like an exception. A man who smoked constantly and still lived long. But longevity doesn't erase damage. It just delays the reckoning. Charles Lane outlasted most of his peers, but the smoke followed him to the very end, proving that even the longest careers carry invisible costs. Number 15. George Formby. George Formby smiled like nothing could touch him. His lungs told a different story. On screen, Formby was lighthearted and playful. Off-screen, cigarettes never left his hand. Unfiltered, constant. He joked about them, calling them coffin nails, as if humor could cancel reality. Formby smoked from morning until sleep. 40 cigarettes a day became routine, not excess. Touring schedules were brutal. Performances ran back to back. Cigarettes filled the gaps between applause and exhaustion. The habit caught up quietly. Shortness of breath, chest discomfort. Doctors warned him to slow down. He didn't. Audiences still expected energy. Studios expected smiles. Formby delivered both, even as his body pushed back. Heart trouble arrived early. One major episode forced rest but not change. Smoking continued. Work continued. The cycle never broke. What makes Formby's story unsettling is how normal it felt at the time. Smoking wasn't rebellion. It was part of the job. A companion through success. George Formby didn't collapse on stage. He simply ran out of room to keep going. The laughter survived. His health didn't. Number 14. Burgess Meredith. Burgess Meredith smoked until fear finally caught up. Cigarettes were everywhere early in his career. Between scenes, during rehearsals, even while memorizing lines. Smoking was habit, comfort, and background noise. Meredith eventually quit after a terrifying nightmare involving fire and smoke. The message was clear. His body wanted change. For years, he stayed away. Then came television. A role demanded a cigarette holder. One scene turned into many. Smoking returned, slowly at first, then fully. His body remembered faster than he did. The coughing started. To hide it, Meredith developed a laugh. That laugh became iconic. Audiences loved it, never knowing it was created to mask damage. When filming ended, he quit again. But the cost lingered. Breathing issues followed him into later life. The damage was already written. Burgess Meredith is proof that habits don't reset cleanly. They wait. They remember. And sometimes they become part of the performance itself. Number 13. Oscar Levant. Oscar Levant smoked like his thoughts were louder without it. Sharp wit, rapid speech, nervous energy. Cigarettes never left his fingers. Interviews, television panels, rehearsals. Smoke framed everything. Levant joked about his anxiety, even as his body showed signs of stress. Rapid blinking, hand tremors, chest discomfort. He laughed it off on air, turning concern into humor. Smoking wasn't the problem alone. It was part of a larger rhythm of pressure and restlessness. Cigarettes fueled long nights and relentless creativity. Heart trouble came early. Warnings followed. Change did not. What makes Levant's story tragic isn't excess. It's normalization. Smoking became invisible because it was constant. No one interrupted genius to ask him to stop. Oscar Levant lived fast mentally. His body struggled to keep up. The smoke that followed him everywhere never gave him silence, only shorter time. Number 12. Raul Julia. Raul Julia treated cigars like conversation partners. One in the morning, one in the evening, sometimes more. Smoking wasn't rushed. It was deliberate. A pause between performances and thoughts. Julia worked tirelessly. Theater, film, travel, cigars filled moments of rest. He believed in living fully, even when warned otherwise. Health concerns arrived suddenly. Diagnosis followed. Treatment began. Still, he returned to work almost immediately. Scripts came before recovery. Commitment outweighed caution. Even as strength faded, Julia stayed engaged. Reading lines, planning roles. Smoking had shaped his routine for decades. Letting go felt unnatural. Raul Julia didn't slow down when his body asked. He stayed present until the very end. Cigars didn't define him, but they followed him through every chapter. His legacy remains powerful. His story reminds us that dedication can become defiance, and sometimes defiance costs more than talent can repay. Number 11. Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck started smoking before she understood consequences. Introduced as a child, cigarettes became comfort long before success arrived. By adulthood, the habit was permanent. Stanwyck worked harder than most. Long shoots, emotional roles, smoking stayed constant through it all. Breaks meant lighting up. Stress meant lighting up again. As years passed, breathing became difficult. Roles were declined. Energy faded. The body that once powered legendary performances pushed back. She eventually quit, but late. Damage had already shaped her future. Chronic breathing problems followed her into retirement. Barbara Stanwyck's strength carried her far. But even strength has limits. Her story is quiet, not dramatic, and that makes it more honest. Number 10. Redd Foxx. Redd Foxx smoked like the punchline never arrived. 4 packs a day was not exaggeration. Sometimes it was more. Cigarettes were always there, balanced between jokes, rehearsals, and long hours under hot lights. He didn't pretend otherwise. Smoking wasn't hidden. It was part of his rhythm. Comedy looks relaxed from the outside. Foxx's life wasn't. Financial pressure followed him constantly. Tours ran long. Sets moved fast. Smoking filled the gaps between responsibility and exhaustion. When laughter stopped, the cigarette came up. Health problems crept in quietly. Breathing grew harder. Energy dropped. Still, Foxx kept working. Even after collapsing on set, he pushed forward, driven by momentum more than strength. What made Redd Foxx unforgettable was volume. Loud humor, big presence, endless movement. His habits matched that intensity. The work survived, the laughter stayed, but the smoke that powered him for decades didn't give anything back in the end. Number 9. Desi Arnaz. Desi Arnaz smoked like control required constant reinforcement. Running a production company meant decisions never stopped. Pressure lived in every room. Cigars became part of leadership, always present during meetings, rehearsals, and late nights behind the scenes. Smoking was image as much as relief. It fit the era and the authority he carried. The habit followed him everywhere, from sound stages to offices. It didn't look reckless. It looked normal. As years passed, the cost became harder to ignore. Health warnings arrived, but change came slowly. Sobriety followed. Smoking damage didn't reverse. The timeline was already written. Arnaz built television history through discipline and vision. His public success stayed bright. The private toll stayed quieter. Desi Arnaz didn't lose control of his career. He lost control of something more basic. His story reminds us that leadership often hides strain, and habits formed under pressure don't leave easily. Number 8. Jack Webb. Jack Webb smoked, even when breathing demanded restraint. Asthma never slowed him. Medical advice didn't either. 4 packs a day remained standard. Cigarettes were constant during long production hours and intense schedules. Webb's image stayed firm, serious, unbending. Behind that image, his body struggled quietly. The damage didn't announce itself. It accumulated. Smoking aged him quickly. Energy faded. Health declined. Still, Webb stayed in control professionally. Sets ran on time. Performances stayed sharp. What makes his story unsettling is persistence. Not rebellion, not denial, just continuation. The habit never paused long enough to break. Jack Webb looked strong until he wasn't. The wear showed before the end. His legacy remains influential. The smoke that followed him everywhere simply waited until his body could no longer keep pace. Number 7. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead smoked like boundaries were optional. Over 100 cigarettes a day was routine. Parties, sets, dressing rooms. Smoke filled every space she entered. Smoking shaped her voice, turning it into something unforgettable. That sound became her signature. The cost came later. Doctors warned her repeatedly. She ignored them. Talent kept doors open. Applause drowned out concern. The habit stayed. Health declined slowly, then decisively. Breathing became effort. Recovery never arrived. Tallulah lived without restraint. The smoke never left her side. Her presence remains legendary. So does the reminder that intensity always demands payment. Number 6. Michael Landon. Michael Landon smoked until it became part of the environment. 4 packs a day, unfiltered. The smell reached crew members before he did. Cigarettes followed him through long shoots and emotional scenes. The habit fit his pace. Landon worked constantly. Stress stayed high. Smoking filled every pause. It wasn't discussed. It was expected. He quit late. The damage stayed. Health problems arrived quietly, then rapidly. Strength faded. Time shortened. Michael Landon gave comfort to millions through stories of hope. Behind the camera, his body carried years of strain. The kindness survived. The habit didn't. Number 5. Julie London. Julie London didn't just sing through smoke. She breathed it. Her voice was instantly recognizable. Low, intimate, effortless. What audiences didn't realize was how deeply smoking shaped that sound. Julie started young, and by adulthood, cigarettes were part of her daily rhythm. 3 packs a day wasn't unusual. It was expected. Recording sessions ran long. Film sets moved slowly. Waiting meant lighting up. Julie smoked between takes, after meals, late into the night. The habit followed her everywhere, quietly carving its mark into her voice. At first, the industry rewarded it. That husky tone became her signature. Casting leaned into it. Music executives loved it. But voices don't negotiate forever. Over time, control faded. Notes became harder to hold. Performances demanded more effort. Health issues followed gradually, not dramatically. Fatigue replaced stamina. Appearances became fewer. The voice that once opened doors slowly limited them. Julie London didn't lose relevance. She lost room to keep going. Her sound remains timeless. The cost behind it stayed off stage, lingering long after the last note faded. Number 4. John Wayne. John Wayne smoked like toughness required it. Off-screen, the cigarette never left his hand. Between scenes, during conversations, long after the cameras stopped. Smoking was woven into his image of resilience and control. Wayne started young and never slowed down. Westerns, war films, long shoots under harsh conditions. Cigarettes became routine, not rebellion. 4 packs a day didn't raise eyebrows. It matched the era. Health warnings arrived late. A major diagnosis forced drastic surgery. 1 lung removed, ribs gone. Recovery was brutal. Wayne returned to work anyway, determined to stay visible. For a time, he did. He spoke openly about health risks, encouraged awareness, but the damage was already layered deep. Years later, illness returned from another direction. John Wayne embodied endurance, but endurance isn't immunity. His career survived longer than his body could. The smoke that followed him through decades never loosened its grip. Number 3. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn smoked with elegance the public wasn't meant to see. Behind the polished image, cigarettes were constant. Audrey began young, long before fame tightened its grip. As attention grew, so did pressure. Smoking became comfort, control, escape. On screen, cigarettes were styled. Off-screen, they were necessary. 3 packs a day wasn't unusual during intense periods. The habit was carefully hidden, managed by studios protecting her image. Audrey carried herself with grace, but stress followed closely. Smoking eased anxiety, at least briefly. Over years, the toll appeared quietly. Health concerns surfaced later, long after applause faded. What makes her story striking is contrast. Poise paired with dependence, discipline paired with habit. The public saw balance. Reality was more fragile. Audrey Hepburn remains timeless. But even icons leaned on something to survive the pressure. The smoke stayed out of frame. The cost didn't. Number 2. Walt Disney. Walt Disney smoked while creating worlds meant to feel innocent. Cigarettes followed him everywhere. Offices, studios, long planning sessions. Smoking wasn't indulgence. It was constant. As his empire grew, so did concern over image. Disney knew what smoking suggested. Photos were altered, cigarettes removed, public appearances managed carefully. Behind closed doors, nothing changed. Stress was enormous, deadlines endless. Cigarettes filled the quiet moments between decisions shaping entertainment history. Health declined in the background. Work continued. Warnings arrived late. Diagnosis came suddenly. Walt Disney didn't slow down. He built until his body stopped cooperating. The worlds he created still feel untouched. The habit that followed him through every step stayed hidden. Number 1. Al Lewis. Al Lewis smoked like it was part of the costume. Cigars were always nearby, on set, between takes. During conversations that drifted long past filming hours, smoking wasn't hidden or styled. It was simply there, as natural to him as his gravelly voice and sharp humor. Lewis worked steadily for decades, and the habit followed every phase of his career. Cheap cigars, constant lighting, slow exhale after slow exhale. There was no drama around it, no image management. He never pretended it was anything else. What makes Lewis different from others on this list is control. He didn't chase pace. He didn't outrun exhaustion. He worked, smoked, rested, and worked again. The routine stayed steady, almost stubbornly so. Health warnings existed, but they never defined him. Unlike many peers, Lewis didn't collapse under the strain. He aged visibly, but deliberately. The smoke never disappeared, yet it never completely overtook him either. Al Lewis lived on his own terms. The habit stayed until the end. His longevity didn't erase the risk. It simply made the story harder to explain. Hollywood made smoking look stylish, effortless, even powerful. But behind the glow of the screen, the habit followed these stars everywhere, shaping voices, careers, and endings. Some walked away in time, others never did. If this list surprised you, share your thoughts below, subscribe for more deep dives, and remember this: the credits always roll, but the habits we carry often stay long after the lights fade.